is Annemarie Ward, and I am a person in long-term recovery, and I've just had a message from police saying that we are indeed live. That's good. I'd like to introduce everybody to Sandra Losty from Recovery Hour. Sandra is our newest board member, and Sandra has been helping us to create something called the Association of Recovery Community Organisations. So Sandra, I'll just hand it over to you to tell people a wee bit about yourself and what your vision is, what your ideals are to get us started about ARCO, the Association of Recovery Community Organisations.
Yeah, thanks, Annemarie. Good evening, everybody. I am Sandra Losty. I am also a person in long-term recovery, and coming up to 10,000 days. Would you believe that, Annemarie, on Saturday? And that's just a very significant number, when I see volumes of time like that, I get very reflective, So, but anyway, we keep it in the day and why we're here. We won't go into Saturday already. So yes, most recent board member of Faces and Voices UK, delighted to be part of this movement. And I'm very happy to be delighted and be a part of something that's advocating for recovery, promoting recovery, and talking about recovery openly. And I appreciate that's not everyone's situation and totally get that. But for people who can, I think it's a wonderful venture. And coming on and understanding that ARCO is something that can benefit so many people on so many different levels: the individual, the family member, the community, the services within that area that is supporting community, and even our kind of state and statutory bodies can benefit from this, this group as well. So I was very excited to step into this, and I love kind of new things, So it's a bit like when you have something and you can make it grow and mold it. Really, really happy to be a part of this project, to connect more organisations together, connect them with the information that they need to continue to grow and develop and shape into wherever they're going to go. I mean, nothing stays the same forever. And give individuals access to information, and then support those services to continue to offer really quality services, And there's lots we have planned, loads and loads and loads we have planned. So we might go into that a little bit later on. But Annemarie, I think it's very valuable, seeing as how you're around this a lot longer than I am, is maybe to kind of tell us a little bit about the foundations and the origins of an organisation called ARCO.
Okay, so we became ARCO members of the Association of Recovery Community Organisations in America quite a few years ago, and we've really been able to develop and grow from that. We've been able to get a lot of excellent support, inspirational development, access to, I suppose, work and resources that we would never have had access to, from the UK. But I think the most important thing that I've found useful about ARCO overall is the support for growing and developing Faces and Voices of Recovery UK. So of course it was Faces and Voices of Recovery in America who set up the original ARCO, and really we are setting ourselves up in the same vein as that. We originally created the ARCO policies about 4 or 5 years ago now, and we had an initial flurry of membership. But even like today, we don't have, I suppose, the resources, the administration, the staff to help it grow and develop in the same way that our other organisations would. So everything that we do at Favour UK is done on a shoestring, and it's usually done by the goodwill of volunteers like yourself, Sandra. But ultimately, the overall goal of ARCO is to influence laws and policies that enable recovery, health and wellness, and civic engagement for people who are affected by alcohol and other drugs. And what the hope is, as time goes on, is that our recovery communities are organised and mobilised to address these policies, practices, and also the perceptions for people who are, maybe friends and allies of people who are suffering, to help them have a vehicle to change the laws and the policies that are out there at the moment that are failing. So anybody can be, like, you know, when we'll come into who can be a member, etc. in a wee minute, but ultimately the overall arching, I suppose, vision is that we have an umbrella organisation. Now that doesn't mean that we are the people in charge, or we are the people, you know, who know best, or we're the people in authority. What that means is that there's a space and a unity for people to grow and develop, and for organisations to grow and develop, because as you well know, Sandra, and I'm sure anybody who works in this field knows, most services work in isolation, conflict and competition with each other. And one of the real strengths that we have as people in recovery is that tradition and that concept of unity, and the ability to separate the individual organisational need from the collective need. And the collective need at the moment is absolutely for lived experience community organisations to grow and develop and to become stronger. So that is overall the umbrella that we want to be able to provide. It is that space, and in time maybe even become, you know, I'm a very ambitious woman in terms of, I've always felt like the recovery community has so much more to offer than what we're currently being allowed to offer. So I see the lived experience voice at the moment being very steered, very tokenistic, and I actually see, I have that ambition for us to be a regulatory body, and I don't mean us as in Favour UK, but that could be something that ARCO develops. So if you're a member of ARCO, you could go on to develop a regulatory body that oversees the whole industry, from community to residential rehab to medically prescribing. You know, that's one of the things that our field is lacking massively, is we don't have an overarching regulatory body. Now, over the years, Sandra, I've spoke to many people who have said that, you know, oh, that's too difficult, Annemarie, that's too much, you're an idealist, don't be ridiculous, you know. And Sandra, that's just music to my ears. Because that's just like a red rag to a bull, do you know what I mean?
I'm thinking that you're very brave to say something like that to you.
Well, do you know, we started Favour UK in 2009. That was when we had the first walk. We didn't become Favour UK in 2012. You know, we constituted originally as a community group and then as a community interest company. And then we became a charity, and then we changed our name once we thought we had a mandate to call ourselves Faces and Voices of Recovery. So, you know, all along I've had people say to me, you can't do that, Annemarie, don't be ridiculous, Annemarie. And, you know, at the time when we started this, it was, you know, right at the start of the austerity stuff, you know, and the policies and the millions and billions of pounds getting pulled out of the treatment sector. And most of the organisations that started at that time, or had started around about that time, they're gone now. We're not. And you know, that's because, well, obviously I'm like the proverbial dug with a bone, as we say, but it's also because the vision that we offer, I've heard other organisations refer to us as the conscience of the addiction field. And somebody needs to be that, because it's such a cutthroat industry. So the reason why we're still here is because we've got a message that carries depth and weight, and that vision of long-term organisation and mobilisation of the recovery community, its friends and allies, is a vision that just won't go away. And if it's not us that's going to do it, it'll be somebody else. And, you know, as long as those people are in recovery, that's great, I'll help them, but I'd love them to come and help us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, Annemarie, a lot of people just don't know how. You know, that a lot of people want to give back. I was one of those people, you know, I wanted to give back, and I gave back at a very local level, and that was fine. But then this avenue opened up where I could help her on a much wider level. And I think that's one of the gifts, that's one of the offerings we can bring to people, is whether you're an individual or an unconstituted group or an interest group of some description, that you can help this and you can get the benefits and the support while still helping to grow this, you know, when we can give people that information and those resources to help them walk that path, you know, And I'm sure a lot of people would be very grateful to know that there is a path they can step onto to be a part of something. It's what we're all looking for, really.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I found really useful about being a member of ARCO in America is, you know, for instance, and it came up today in a Twitter discussion about risk aversion, right? So obviously a lot of our services currently across the UK are run by social workers, nurses, drug workers, big charities, and they all have their own, you know, risk averse policies, etc., and to different degrees of risk aversion and different degrees of you know, professional standards, etc. And there's no real, you know, overarching theme, you know, from rehab in the community to detox to residential to prescribing services. There's nothing, there's no set of standards that brings them together, but they're also very focused in I remember when I first started working in this job, one of the things that my supervisor said to me at the time was you can't share your own lived experience. And I was working in a therapeutic environment, and he was like, well, you know, your professional boundaries stop you from sharing your own experience. You know, that's unprofessional to do that. And I think one of the things that I've learned from being a member of ARCO is that recovery community organisations have their own sets of standards and boundaries and policies that maybe no fit with the medical establishments or social works or, you know, the charitable aims of, you know, the current providers. And there's something there that's really important about recovery. And I say that because, to use that one example about connection, right? So we know that connection is the antidote to recovery. Everybody knows that, whether it be connected to your friends and loved ones, your community, your purpose, your work life, you know, that connection, that sense of being useful and purposeful. And whatever way that is, it doesn't have to be a job or paid job, but just being connected in general is absolutely what's that stuff that Superman used? The kryptonite. The kryptonite to addiction is that sense of connection. Now, there would be a lot of current policies at your workplace if you're a social worker or a drug worker or a, you know, a nurse or a doctor that would prevent you from offering that connection. And this is where ARCO has really gave me a vision for what we could create as our own professional standards if we, you know, had because we've got the energy, we've got the passion, we've got the professional experience, but we can't do all this just on goodwill. We need supported, we need financed, we need help, you know. So, and that's one of the things that I became an expert at over the last 14 years, is asking for help. But you do have to create that vision. And if we're going to, I remember recently, Huey at our conference on the 1st of April, Huey from Blackpool spoke about, you know, we've got our own policies, our own standards that are different. You know, we can cut across boundaries in a way that other professions might think was wrong or unprofessional. But those cutting those boundaries and cutting that distance is absolutely essential to our well-being.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think any new pathway that is forged, you know, has its things in the way, and some of that is what's already established, you know, and we are looking for growth, you know. Well, for those of us who see the benefits in it are looking for growth. Those of us who are looking to keep it the same are not looking for growth, you know. However, the point is the growth will happen, you know, it will happen. So we can either bring people along with us and grow, or we can keep moving forward, which we will, and become even more developed. I was going to say another words there, but I won't, because I remember them live.
Yeah, don't swear. Don't say shit or bugger.
I won't. Khalees from lovely Khalees, who's also a board member trustee of Faces and Voices, is watching after the Facebook Live. So thank you, Khalees, for that. We really appreciate your support there. She's like, don't swear. Promise not to swear.
Yeah, if there's any questions on the Facebook, Khalees, fire them over. I'll see them popping up on my screen. But you know, it really is. Most of what Favour UK has done has been to offer a vision. And I know that sounds like willy-nilly, but when we started, there was no, our hashline was making recovery visible. You know, there was no other organisations in the UK that were doing that. There was treatment organisations, you know, who were providing treatment, but there was no one else making recovery visible. Now we've got loads of organisations doing that, which is fantastic. You know, it really is satisfying to see that. You know, we argued all along for more visible representation of lived experience on working groups, committees, you know, strategic planning, that sort of thing. And again, Mrs. Ambitious here, we see a lot more of that now. It's still very tokenistic and very, very steered. And I would like to see it, you know, I'd like to see the recovery community itself step into it and own its own space. You know, instead of waiting on someone saying, do you want a seat at this table? To know, like, we are the table. You know, so but
there's a new hashtag, we are the table.
Yeah, but I suppose it's part of my own professional growth and development as well, you know, over the years of, you know, initially chapping the door and saying, can we get a seat at the table? Can we get a seat at the table? And then eventually, you know, now I'm like, and it's not an arrogance, it's just a natural development where I've got into a place where we're like, okay, we've won seats at the table. You know, we now need to start steering the discussion. You guys need to listen to us. We are professional experts by experience. And one of the big things, here's a hashtag, one of the big things that has dominated our field and impeded progress in our field has been this, you know, the harm reduction versus recovery debate, which is basically an ideological black hole. So one of the hashtags that I've been trying to, just over the last few days, trying to get people to think about is experts by experience, not experts by ideology. So I think everybody's, you know, capable of falling into those ideological black holes, regardless of what, you know, philosophical school they subscribe to, sorry. But the whole point of, you know, even from our earliest events, we were getting into trouble because we were saying to people who were idealists in either camp about harm reduction or recovery, we were saying to them, you know, look, your ideas, your professional experience, your beliefs about what this condition is or how to recover from it don't actually matter. And people were furious. You know, they were absolutely furious at that. But we were caveating that by saying they don't matter because your job is to make sure that everybody gets access to all the different pathways. So if you can focus on access and choice, we can all get behind that. There's a unification behind access and choice, and you don't have to be binary about this. You don't have to be one thing or the other. But if we all put our weight behind access and choice, well, then there's much, you know, much to build on there. You know, it's not, so Favour UK were, you know, that was always the bridge that we built was always about that. And of course, Sandra, when you're a bridge builder, you get walked on from both sides.
You do. And it can be a lonely journey, whereas in that recovery, you know, when we step onto that pathway, it can feel very lonely and we're out of our familiar ways, but we keep going.
Yeah.
You know,
and do you know what, that perseverance, so there's another spiritual principle of recovery, you know, the absolute perseverance. You know, I get messages all the time from people saying, how do you keep going? And I was reminded this year, I was away on retreat, and I was reminded this year that, and this has brought me great comfort, because I have been distressed at times, you know, about repeating myself over and over and over again. But I was reminded, you know, when a mother's teaching her children, she has to repeat herself. She has to tell, tidy your room, come down for dinner, tidy your room, come down for dinner. You know, she has to constantly repeat the same messages over and over again before her children listen. And I'm not saying I'm the mother of the addiction field, do you know what I mean? But I am aware that there are really entrenched mantras that have been going for 20, 25 years, sometimes 30 years. And certain professionals have built empires, and not just empires, but they've built whole treatment systems around certain ideologies. So if you keep, part of Favour's role has to be to keep putting out those progressive middle ground messages over and the message of unity over and over and over again. And that might sound contradictory because, we've been very challenging to the addiction sector in recent years. But that challenge is also necessary. Again, if I go back to the mother and her children, she has to reprimand them. She has to say to them, this isn't good enough. So, and of course, a lot of people see that as being somehow agitative or angry or, unhelpful in some way. And of course it is, to people who are disturbed by it. But yourself, the deaths, the numbers of people dying from this condition, the lack of help, the lack of investment, they just, who's going to be fighting for this? Who is going to sort of offer some sort of vision to go forward if all the organisations are working in isolation, conflict and competition with each other? They're all cutting each other's throats as well. The treatment sector in general are, on a race to the bottom. And the recent investment that's came into the field across the UK would never have came if we hadn't been those angry, agitative, shouting and bawling activists about, losing our loved ones. So there is a role for us to continue to keep doing what we're doing, but hopefully in time, we won't have to chap the door so much, like people will, I think about it in three terms. So if we're building an association or recovery community organisations, what I would want them to be, and this isn't set in stone, by the way, because ask anybody who's ever came and volunteered for Favour UK or came and worked for us, I would be very much hands off, but I would offer a vision, right? And it would be up to the people who came on board whether or not that vision was realised or it went off in another direction, and I'm okay with that. But the vision for me would be for those organisations who become part of ARCO to be even more visible, to be even more valuable, and to be even more vocal, And I often use those three V's to look at, well, where are we as an organisation at the moment? So I think we've got really high visibility at the moment, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? But it's mainly a good thing. We've found our voice, we've got a really strong voice. People seek out our voice now. Not everyone seeks our voice, but, there's a cohort of people who seek guidance from us. And whether or not we're valuable or not, and we'll go back to the vocal. So people in recovery, and I'm not just talking about Favour UK here, I think if you're a member of our association, we would be able to help raise your voice, to amplify your voice as an organisation and as an individual. And we would be able to help that vote to you, for you to become more vocal in a more straightforward but also powerful way. So you can do things like our Stories Have Power training. You can do, there's various sets of trainings that we can offer that can help you direct your own voice. Obviously, we'll be offering advice around what to say and how to say it, but we wouldn't be steering that in any way. We would just be, so for instance, their Stories Have Power training would help people to find out who the local authority councillors are, which, teach them about which is the best way to approach them, to argue for investment to continue or to be raised or in their local treatment service, whether or not they're a lived experience organisation, for investment to come to them. So for instance, we've got a conference on the 1st of September to launch UK Recovery Month. It's going to focus on lived experience organisations, and we've been lobbying Ed Day, who is the UK's recovery champion. He's going to come and speak at that event, but we've been lobbying Ed to push for all lived experience recovery organisations to get 7% of the treatment budget, the entire treatment budget. Now that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And if we can lobby, you know, those in power, which we are doing, and if we had more staff and more volunteers, we could do that a lot better. Hint, hint, anybody out there wants to help. But, you know, we can plant these seeds and plant these ideas. That 7% is already happening in America. Why can it not happen here? Our lived experience, there was someone commented recently about, yeah, but I had mentioned that, you know, there were lived experience organisations in England who will be presenting, by the way, at that conference, who could teach us a thing or two in Scotland about service delivery. And people were saying, yeah, but we use drugs different in Scotland. And I was like, but recovery is the same. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, recovery is the same. Do you know what I mean? So like culturally, it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like recovery is recovery the world over. So there is a lot that we can bring as members to each other. But most importantly, I think what the Association of Recovery Community Organisations could do would be to bring a sense of unity and support. Because there's loads of wee brilliant, I think we've got 12 or 13 members, haven't we, lived experience recovery community organisations already as members of ARCO, but there's loads of others out there who are just, you know, who are trying to get started or are already established and who are working away and who are doing great work, but they don't have any anchors, they don't have anywhere to go for support within their own community, you know, so yeah, sorry,
Okay. I'm going to take it from there. So you and I have a favourite quote by Margaret Mead, and I hope I remember it word for word. And it says, never doubt the power of thoughtful, committed citizens to change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. And for me, that's what happens with ARCO, with the Association of Recovery Community Organisations, is that we bring people together with the same focus, the same desire, the same dedication, the same heart, and that moves mountains. I know it moves mountains because I've been a part of organisations that have done it. And when it comes from the grassroots, it generates a power that the top down can't actually penetrate. It just can't, because it's not using the same energy. So I'm very hopeful about all of that. And what I'd like for people to hear is that we want to hear from you. If you want to connect with a group like this that can offer you support, that can offer you information, that can offer you some training, that can offer you some information, whether that's how to set up as a group and what are some of the legal elements around setting up as a group. We'll bring in people to help explain all of that to you. There is a resource already on the website. There is a written resource there, but we know that people like information. Some people like to read it, some people like to hear it. So you can read it, and we're going to bring somebody in to talk about it, okay? And we're going to help you to understand what you need to look at to step into this space, either as an individual who wants to be visible and vocal and bring value to a recovery community organisation. I love that V. That's on my Twitter, actually. I'm visible and vocal, but I never thought of the value when I add that in, actually. And whether you're an individual who wants to support this, whether you're in recovery yourself or whether you're an ally, we want to hear from you. Email me personally, Sandra at Faces and Voices of Recovery UK.org. Excellent. And email me personally and we will get you information that you need. And then I really want to say is, particularly coming up to Recovery Month, we're going to be working over the month of August to bring you a series of workshops on some of these elements that we talked about there that will help you to tap in where you need to tap into and what it is you need to get help to move forward. Or to be a part of something. You don't necessarily have to be setting up a group. You can be somebody who wants to be a part of a growing organisation from the grassroots level. I don't know about any of you, but I love being a part of something from the very start. Like, yes, I was there at the very beginning. Love that, love that, love that. So there's tons and tons and tons of stuff that we can do. And we have some offerings that we know you will need. We will absolutely support you with that. But equally, we want to hear what you do need. You know, what is it that you need? What is it that you would like us to provide for you? Because that's what organisations like ARCO can do. is you tell us what you need and we'll go and we'll find the support for you. However we find that we'll find a way to get the information to you. And that's what really being part of a grassroots organisation is the reciprocity. You come and join us, whatever you need, we'll find a way to get that need met for you. And that's how it goes. That's how, I don't know about the rest of the world, but that's how we roll in recovery. That reciprocity, it just keeps things moving along, and we keep growing and we keep recovering.
You've got to give it away to keep it, Sandra, isn't that?
Got to give it away to keep it. Absolutely, you got to give it away to keep it.
Two of the other things that I've experienced as being part of ARCO in America was, so they helped me to think about my social media content and how to communicate stuff, and then they could amplify that.
Yeah.
So for instance, if anybody wants to come on and do a podcast about what they're providing as a lived experience organisation or what they're doing, we can amplify that for them. Also, a big area for us, and this is a constant bugbear, is funding bids, funding applications.
Yeah.
My God, the amount of work that goes into even the simplest of funding applications, and gosh, I don't even know, our success rate must be 1 in 40 or something, 1 in 40 funding applications we actually get, and it's so disheartening. But there are formulas for doing this, and there are people who can help, and there are shared stuff that we can share with each other. So, that is for me the funding bids, and having even having workshops or just passing funding bids to each other and saying, can you help with this? Can you help me write that wee bit? Can you help me write this wee bit? Do you know this funder? Have you dealt with this funder before? That sort of stuff is invaluable. And if we're trying to encourage and support lived experience organisations to grow in the same way that we've helped other groups to grow in their own personal recoveries, or the same that we've helped sponsees in our own personal recoveries, or the same way that we've helped develop, stuff in our community, that we can do that for each other as well. We don't have to be, it doesn't have to be either or. We can do this and with each other. One of the horriblest things I've experienced in this industry is, other lived experience organisations either, shall I use the word stealing? I will. Stealing your work, or, not just other lived experience or other organisations, other people taking your work and then giving it to other lived experience organisations. And for me, that's about the beginning of the evolution process, right? And it's like, we've been there, we've done that, guys. We don't need to do that anymore. We need to come together and unify and help each other to develop and grow, and to become I'm loath to use the word force, but what you were referring to earlier, Sandra, it's a different energy when it's built like that, and it's impenetrable. If you grow up together, and if you support and develop and love each other, nurture each other into success, well, it's much more difficult then for anything from the top to divide and conquer. It's not impossible, but it's much more difficult. So here we are, trying to offer something that has been incredibly useful to us, and we want to pass it on to you guys, and we want you to help us keep passing it on as well. And there is a vision, but there's no destination. We want you to help us build the destination and help that destination evolve. And at the moment, there's no reason for doing it. We don't have any eye on any funding pots. We don't have anything in mind that we're trying to, galvanise and organise people so as we can say this or that. We genuinely want to do it because the time is right. As I said, we tried it about 5 or 6 years ago, and there wasn't enough of us then. There's more of a groundswell now, and we do desperately need staff to help us resource and develop this as well. So we are looking for more funding to make that happen. We can't keep doing this on the goodwill of board members and volunteers, unfortunately.
Well, we'll give it what we can, because that's how we roll.
Yeah.
So once again, my email address is sandra@facesandvoicesofrecoveryuk.org. Send me an email if you have a query. I'm happy to hop on a Zoom with you, explain some more stuff in more detail. Is this relevant for you? Whatever, I'm happy to spend some time and take you through that and come and join the family.
Shall we leave it there? People must be bored.
Thanks a million.
Listening to us by now.
No, they're invigorated, Annemarie. They're invigorated.
All right, okay.
They're clamoring to email me. That's what they're doing. On that note, we'll thank Khalees again for looking after our Facebook page. Thank you so much, Khalees, for that. And we'll answer any queries that have come in later on if we haven't got them.
Yeah, and that is a great thing about doing it here on Facebook. Even if people don't see it now and you see it a month from now or 6 weeks from now or whenever, years from now, still get in touch. If you're inspired, still get in touch, because you know there's every chance we will have it off the ground and we'll be looking for new members. So let's help us get it off the ground, guys.
Lovely. Talk to you soon, Annemarie. Thanks, Khalees. Take care, everybody. Bye bye. Bye bye.